Okay, we are back in session. I'll cede this back to Magistrate Birch.
Okay, the hearing is back in session. Thank you for your patience. Only one woman beat me to the restroom, and I'll have to deal with her later. But we're going to pick up where we left off, which was Ms. Montgomery, the case is yours.
Okay, well,
Just state your name for the record.
Nancy Montgomery.
All right. You wish to testify or call a witness?
Okay, I think I want to call a witness. Well, let me say a couple of things first. And I'm going to address some of the things that he addressed before I get into the other. As far as moving the sign, the right of way, the $20,000, at no time did the solicitor, the administrator tell me that that was wrong, or I certainly wouldn't have done it. I was just following what had been done by the sign committee before us. Hang on, I've got notes everywhere. Oh yeah, you said there was never any discussion regarding moving the sign, but you showed a clip up there where there was one that we had discussed that. I just wanted to point that out in case anybody missed it. And as far as asking for a special meeting on April 25th, I don't remember it. I don't know why I would have done it, because I believe it would not have been fair to throw a new council member into this situation, and that would have been before this. So I have no idea what that is about. None. But there is no way I asked for a meeting for the special meeting for the 25th to elect a new member. Anyway, let me go ahead and I'm going to read something first, and then I will call my witnesses. Now, on this subject, let me go ahead and call another witness first. Sue McKinley.
You would come up.
She wasn't sworn in.
I'll swear you in when she
Yeah,
gets
she's going to
here.
swear in.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, I talked to her.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Would you consider
My name is Susan McKinley.
us good friends?
Yes.
Would you consider we spend a lot of time together doing events, planning things, just talking? We talk about a lot of things.
Yes.
Have you ever heard me say I hate the police department?
No.
Have you ever heard me say I have concerns with the leadership of the police department?
Yes.
Have you ever heard me say that I want Rob Freeland or Matt Staggs fired?
No.
That's it for me.
Yeah, just one. I'll just maybe repeat a question slightly different. You are very, very good friends with Nancy Montgomery, correct?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you very much. I'm honest too.
Can that be stricken as improper?
Yeah, there wasn't a question before.
No.
Okay, so no harm, no foul.
Okay.
All right,
Go ahead.
you may.
All right. Since I've been given no specific charges against me, this is all a surprise to me tonight. What I've done is pretty well respond to a council member's Wolf statement at the last council meeting held on April 27th. Excuse me. I believe my original post did not violate the Open Meetings Act. I do believe that Councilmember Wolf's reply did, and Councilmember Varner's and mine. At the April 13th, 2023 council meeting, I read a statement accepting the blame for violating the Open Meetings Act by replying to my original text. I also apologize to the community for my error and promise I would do better in the future. I replied to Councilmember Wolf's text, and that was it. And Councilmember Wolf's statement at the last council meeting, he stated as he was typing the text string was a violation. Ms. Montgomery is still sending out additional text messages to the group again and again and again. And later in his statement, he again says, she continues texting again and again and again. Those are absolute lies. He put it up there. I will tell you that the first text was at 11:04. He replied at 11:22. Then I replied to him at 11:34. Two texts, maybe HR. I just figured I hit return before I meant to. Jeremy replied at 11:38. And then Steve replied, I just realized this text was sent to multiple people at 11:44, 8 minutes after my last text. So that's just not true that I continued to text and text while he was saying that it was a violation. Councilmember Wolf says that this text was a call to action. And I was asking the committee to make a decisional analysis. Now, the text was clearly an FYI and a suggestion of it being considered as a discussion topic about leadership in the PD, since this was an overlying concern of Ms. Matson's in the assessment. Yes, it was their decision to bring it up at the committee or not. This is far from a decisional analysis, which is a form of decision-making, for those of you who don't know, that involves analytical tools to identify and assess all aspects of a decision and taking actions based on the decision that produces most favorable outcome. When suggesting it as a topic to discuss, I never dreamed they would have to use decision-making tools such as visual models or decision trees or influence diagrams or calculate the expected value of the decision's outcome. I thought perhaps it would be more, hey, do you want to talk about this at the meeting or not?
If there was, okay. I think if you make a notation to yourself that you want to talk about that during cross, that would be great. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As for a seemingly disbelief that I heard from several people, four actually, there's a reason I heard and others did not. I was told by one that other things have been mentioned to other council members in the past, but they were never brought up. They were sure I would at least bring it up. I've been told by numerous people since 2016 that they will talk to me about things because, one, I listen and don't ignore them. Two, I will convey their concerns or issues. And three, I do not divulge names unless I have their permission. I don't apologize to anyone for any of that. I at no time diminished my part in this violation. I accepted my share of the blame, while others claim they can't see who is in group texts on their phone or they were busy or whatever their excuse. I own what I did. I apologize to people I felt I owed an apology to. I owe an apology to the people who committed. I owe no apology to the people who committed the same violation I did. I did not initially apologize to the mayor because I didn't consider him to be really involved, but I did subsequently apologize both for the debacle and for not apologizing sooner. Councilmember Wolf goes on to say that this is not about a text, but about bigger issues. He states that this is about, quote, the repeated conduct of a council member hell-bent with personal agenda that is letting their dislike of one of our village departments continually contaminate our village council and be a continual interference in any other work we do, unquote. My only agenda is to make Georgetown a wonderful place to live. I think that, excuse me, I think that should be obvious by the things I have done. I have worked hard to serve this community, not only as a council member, but in writing grants and raising donations, heading events, writing articles for the newspaper, running various Facebook pages like Georgetown, Ohio, What's Happening, and Georgetown, Ohio, Open for Business. I love this village and I show it. As for not liking one of the departments, as Councilmember Wolf pointed out, I have to assume he's referring to the police department. The police department is the one I have brought more issues to council about than any others, because it is the one I've received the most specific comments about to be addressed. But let's look at my history with the police department. As far back as 2015, I offered to do a national night out event before I was on council. When I was on council before, I spent 2.5 hours at a meeting I was invited to by Chief Freeland and Captain Staggs so they could explain their need for a garage. A garage space was located and they are still using it today. I also spent about 45 minutes with Captain Staggs after he requested me to meet with him so he could explain why he posted a negative post about me on the village page saying I had an agenda. He explained and apologized for it. The delusion of my agenda being anti-police seems to have continued through the years, perpetuated by someone other than me or my actions. Bring it to the present day. We have budget concerns as the PD approaches using 60% of the general fund. 10 years ago, they hit 62% and had to go back to 6 officers. We need to learn from our mistakes and be proactive. I do not want this to happen again. To address the problem of not having officers apply, after we had looked, I'm on the budget committee as our council member Cornett and council member Wolf. After we had looked at Chief Freeland's suggested new pay scale, I was the one who suggested adding $1 an hour to the part-time officers range and $1 an hour to the top of the patrol officers pay range. That was me, no one else. They agreed, but they didn't bring it up. I did. Excuse me, but I'm obviously missing something here. I'll just go ahead and wing it on this then. Also, one thing Ms. Madsen had suggested was that they post to Facebook a couple times a week. And I noticed they hadn't been doing it. They get busy, can't think of anything to post, whatever. So I had sent Mayor Cahall, I don't know, 5 or 6 kind of generic messages a lot of police departments use, like how to be sure your house is safe or whatever. And told him, you know, in a pinch, they could use one of those. They don't have to think about it, post it, they're done. I thought that was being helpful, not harmful. Doesn't sound to me like I have an agenda against the police to me. Continual interference. Now let's move to what Councilmember Wolf refers to as continual interference in other council work. I bring issues and concerns from citizens to council. This is one of our jobs, representing citizens. It is our job to ask questions and to be a watchdog over what's going on in the village. I have never walked out on a meeting or an executive session in anger or frustration as some have. I've never folded my arms and said I was going to bug out because another member said something I didn't like. I've never held an inquisition of other council members. I do not bring up votes. I have lost over and over meetings after the vote took place. I'm the one who has asked if we can move on after a dead horse has been beaten. I'm the one who has asked if we are going to have to hear about an issue over and over in future meetings after a decision has been made. I don't hold up councils reading 5 to 10 minute diatribes. I've never insinuated another council member cannot get things done and can't work with others as another has done. I'm not the one who accused another member of throwing her pen down and rolling her eyes when I was speaking. I'm not the one who bragged outside of an executive session how I bullied 2 council members into quitting. I've never evaded taxes. I've never been arrested or served time in jail. In other words, I do my job as a council member. I come to meetings on time. I'm well prepared. I do not insult or disparage my fellow council members. Once a vote is taken, I accept it, even if it's something I voted against. I stay focused and on task. I do my best to make the village a better place, both as a council member and as a citizen. I exhibit honesty and integrity. I'm mindful that I am a public servant and am proud to serve the Georgetown citizens. I take my election to this council as an honor and a responsibility. I have some questions I would like to ask witnesses now. Can I call Steve Wolf?
You've been sworn.
Yes.
All right, can you see him?
Yeah, I can see. No problem. When you've brought citizen issues or concerns to council, have I ever questioned the veracity of those?
What at all does that have to do with any of the evidence presented tonight?
Well, you're talking about,
My question was, what does that have, I'm sorry? My question was, what does that have to do with any of the evidence presented tonight?
Stop. There's an objection on the floor based on relevance.
My fear is that this turns into a, I'm better than you, and here's why, and you're better.
Not at all.
I would ask that we stick to,
Stop. There's an objection on the floor based on relevance, and the issue is whether another council member has engaged in similar behavior. How is that relevant to the issue before
in his
council
statement,
today?
okay, in his statement to the at the last council meeting, he insinuated that when I said I had had complaints that I had not. He questioned my honesty.
Okay, but how is that relevant to today's decision, which is focused on your behavior? You may be back on a different day.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So-
That's fine.
Okay, so next question, please.
Do you not think one of our jobs as council members is to ask questions, be a watchdog over what is going on in the village?
I think that's one of our jobs, yes. I think that's one of our jobs, yes.
Have you ever walked out of a council meeting, executive session, work session, or committee meeting in anger or frustration?
I walked out of one special meeting that we had because I was
Okay,
attempting
these
to
are yes or
read
no
down a list and you
questions,
went.
pretty much.
Can I finish my?
Yeah.
I'll finish.
Have you ever folded your arm? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry.
There was an objection. Okay, and relevance is still the issue. Because as I said, on another day, you may be here as to another council member's behavior, but tonight's hearing is,
Okay. Were there other options of discipline you could have placed on me, such as censure, suspended for a meeting, taken off of a committee, but you chose to go for the ultimate removal?
In section 3.06, I could find no other options. And I think that,
Ask for yes or no answers?
just a minute,
Okay,
don't interrupt. Let him finish his answer.
okay.
And yes, you may ask for a yes or no, but the witness then may explain
Okay.
according to the rules. So you said
you repeat the original question,
You
please.
did not find any authority for anything
I could find,
short of removal.
yes, ma'am.
Okay,
You say it was in the charter?
In section 3.06, it says that if the infractions have occurred that I'm alleging have occurred, that we may
Somebody have a copy?
remove or expel.
Oh.
Just so you know, Nancy asked to see a copy of
Right.
the charter, and I've got a digital one on my
Yeah,
computer. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I don't want to do it. Okay.
That's fine.
may reflect
I need to
that
make
Ms.
it bigger.
Montgomery
Sorry.
is examining a copy of the charter at this point.
Sorry, how about we do that? Better?
Okay, yes, let's see. There you go. Okay, let's go back up here. Can you go up?
Let's go this way or upwards.
No, no, no.
Sorry.
I
Okay.
just want to see this section. Okay. Went down one.
Here?
No, no, no.
Sorry.
It's no. I want to see the first couple lines there.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So it's your belief that since the charter doesn't say it, you can't do it, even though if the charter doesn't mention it, it can go back to state law.
It's not my belief.
Next question.
Okay. Actually, I think that's probably it for him. Let me look at Mike's.
You want to look at your notes before you say
Yeah.
you're finished? Okay, take a minute and do that.
I'm finished with Steve.
Okay. Any other witnesses?
Mike Mays.
Mr. Mays, you've been sworn? Yes. All right.
Mike,
sir.
do you think one of our jobs as council members is to ask questions, be a watchdog over what's going on in the village? Do you believe there were other options of discipline you could have placed on me, such as censure, suspension for a meeting, taken off a committee, but you chose to go to the ultimate removal?
Unfortunately, that's the only option that it shows that I see.
So you believe that that was your only option? You don't believe that,
Indicated yes.
okay. That's it for questions.
Additional witnesses? Ms. Montgomery, did you have additional witnesses you
No.
wish to call? Are you finished with your own
I'm
testimony?
finished with that.
Is there any cross-examination?
By her.
I'm sorry.
Is there any cross-examination?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. Any rebuttal? Meaning, is there any evidence you wish to put forth that would rebut what Ms. Montgomery has said?
I actually have a question back to her. Is that,
That would not be.
okay, then I'm fine. I'd say,
Right, so you're finished, you waive any
Yeah.
rebuttal? Okay, the evidence is closed. This is an opportunity for a brief closing statement as to what you think the evidence supports in terms of a remedy and what you think the evidence does not support in terms of the remedy. And you go first, sir.
I would, when you say brief, I would just like to respectfully request a little bit of latitude there, because there was a number of charges. Okay, and right off the bat, I would like to take one of them off. I completely take Ms. Montgomery at her word that she did not put out a directive to call a special meeting. So I think we heard that that this case was going to be about a couple people who saw flowers when they should have been seeing weeds, or weeds when they should have been seeing flowers, or something to that effect. And that you would see some people who just disagreed with Mrs. Montgomery. Am I supposed to be making my closing now? Okay. That you would see people who just disagreed with Mrs. Montgomery on items and issues, and that's why they had brought this forward tonight. That's what I heard. When in reality, nothing can be further than the truth. You've been presented not one or two isolated incidents, but multiple violations that warrant the removal. In regard to Mrs. Montgomery's questions about, did we think this was the only option available? I think it's the proper option available. That's as simple as I can put it. I think anything less than a removal would be a travesty. I presented evidence through my testimony that Nancy has a bias against the police department, specifically the ranking members of that department. She maintains a position that she does not. I refute that claim based on her conversations with me. I have no way of knowing if she's had similar conversations to the other people on the jury. I made a specific decision not to call each of you to testify if she has said similar comments to you. But here's the thing. If she has had similar comments with you, you already know that she has bias, and that would affect her ability to do her job impartially. If she has not had those conversations with you, you either have to believe that for whatever reason she chose not to share those opinions with you, or that I'm bold-faced lying. And here's the deal. If you believe that I'm telling you an intentional lie to have a council person removed from office, then you should ask me to resign. And that's fine. You can do that tonight publicly. You can do that tonight in private. You can text me later, however you want to do it. Because here's the thing. Me intentionally perjuring myself to get somebody off of council would be far worse than anything I've alleged Nancy Montgomery of tonight. But I'm telling you, those conversations happened. They happened repeatedly. They happened on my patio at my house. They happened in the parking lot of the Southern Hills Joint Vocational School. They happened multiple places, and in phone calls and in text, they happened. I heard repeatedly desires to get rid of them, not just to get rid of police officers, but to embarrass them. That happened. It either happened or I'm lying and I need to go. If I thought her biases against the police department had waned or were getting weak over time, then perhaps we could all view this differently. But there's no evidence of that. As recently as a month ago, she sent out a text. And let's just face it, I could care less, really, if it was an open, that thing has been beat to death. Forget sunshine law, forget open meetings. What's really happening there? We have once again a message, a gotcha moment on Matt Staggs because he responds to a Facebook post that in a way that she doesn't approve of. That's what's never going to end. It's not going to end. It has to end. We are a legislative authority. I just heard the term watchdog of the community. Watchdog of the community. Yeah, we should be watching over things in the community. What we don't need to be doing is watching over village employees. We don't need to be watching over their Facebook posts. We don't manage village employees. If she wants to claim that she sent her text because several of her constituents, up to four, contacted her about a Facebook post, then I would submit that she should refer those constituents to the mayor who oversees the police department. That would make a lot more sense. That's how I would handle that. I would say, I'm on village council. We don't manage individual employees. You need to call the mayor or you need to call the administrator. I wouldn't send out a text message recommending council action or subcommittee action. It's silly, and it's gone on far too long. In my year and a half on council, I feel that it's been wasted investigating departments, chasing after police, chasing after a mayor, trying to manage personnel. It's not our job. Yes, we all know our council has been something of an embarrassment. Critics of mine, the few that are here tonight, would say that this hearing tonight is one more chapter in that book of embarrassment. I say this hearing tonight as a way to effectively close the book and begin writing a new one. The other infractions that I have detailed, that's bias against the police. The other infractions that I have detailed to you involve a misuse of power. I sincerely believe that Nancy Montgomery thinks that she outranks some of the other members of the village council. And I'll take, for example, Mike Mays. Mike, by quite a large margin, received more votes than any other person running for village council in the last election. But I've witnessed Nancy continually act like she has a better pulse on the wishes of the community, even though more of the community actually voted for him by a wide margin at the ballot box. Mike actually owns a business in Georgetown. Let me back up. Mike actually owns multiple businesses in Georgetown. But we've all witnessed Nancy schooling Mike in open meetings about what businesses need in this town and what they want and what brings businesses in this town. Her explaining business to Mike is kind of like a kangaroo telling a goldfish how to swim. But one council person acting superior to others is not a reason to vote them off of council. I agree with that. But when that concept of superiority translates into letting yourself believe that you have the right to step outside of the rules of council, operate under the radar of council, run by your own rules, go change elements of previously passed resolutions by full council, send out directions to the village solicitor on your own, send out directions to the village administrator by yourself, then it's a problem. That's when your feeling of superiority has actually become a problem. If you think that you outrank your fellow council members to a degree that you can alter resolutions upon which they have voted, you're harming the body of council. When you have a feeling of superiority that makes you think that it's permissible to publicly try to humiliate a citizen speaking at a council meeting, it warrants action by council. This definitely demands action from us. If we are willing to vest that much authority into a single one person, then what's the need for the rest of us to participate? Undermining resolutions and dishing out orders to an administrator minimizes the role of this council body as a whole. It minimizes the role of mayor. It goes against the whole concept of a representative council upon which our charter is built. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a good public speaker. This isn't what I do all the time. And I suppose this is the point where I'm supposed to walk you through each infraction that I have pointed out tonight and recap them to you and tell them that I've demonstrated them to you. I'm not going to do that. The simple reason was stated in my opening. I truly believe you people have witnessed this and you know of the things of which I speak. I do not bring this case to you in anger. I brought it to you in frustration. I don't have a personal vendetta against Nancy Montgomery. I wish her the very best. I just sincerely believe with all my heart that her actions have warranted her removal from office. I sincerely believe that she has a bias that will continually raise its head again and again and again if there's any way that the topic will even remotely touch on the police department. That's what I believe. I leave this case with you to decide, and I will offer you this. I do not believe our charter offers us the authority to conduct, hear this carefully because this was just asked. I do not believe that our charter offers us the authority to conduct a hearing such as this and then settle on some lesser action than removal. We did not advertise to the public that we were having a disciplinary hearing tonight. We advertised a removal hearing in accordance with section 3.02. You essentially have three choices, and I'm talking to the rest of the jurors here. You have three choices having heard what you've heard, in my opinion. You either believe the evidence that's been put before you by me and remove her pursuant to section 3.02, or you believe the evidence that I put forth and you allow her to stay on, which to me is essentially condoning her behavior and disregard anybody victimized by her behavior. Or you don't believe it and you allow her to remain. Meaning you don't believe what I've said and you allow her to remain. So if you believe the evidence here and you want her to leave, I can accept that. If you don't believe the things I've told you and you want her to remain, I can accept that. But what I can't accept is if you have heard everything I said and you believe it, but you're still going to allow her to remain on our village council. I, for one, refuse to send a message to those affected by her actions that I'm okay with them. Village workers have been affected. Village officials have been embarrassed. I stand with those people. testifying tonight has caused me to publicly admit some embarrassing things about myself. I pretty much had a good image in my head that some, old text would be whipped out against me. Again, something I could have easily done. There's plenty of fodder in that phone. But I didn't feel the need to hit that low. That's fine. I can take it. I contemplated resigning before this hearing to avoid all that, but it seems selfish to the other people that have been victimized to take that easy way out. I leave this case in your hands with the confidence that you will do the right thing, the thing that you believe is right. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Montgomery.
Well, I think I did pretty well coming in tonight, walking in tonight, few pieces of paper, knowing absolutely nothing about the details of the charges against me. I asked each of the two members for council who brought those charges to clarify for me why they wanted to remove me. Each time they declined to do so. There was silence. Probably would have been a little more fair if I had had some time to prepare and a little bit of knowledge, not been blindsided, but that's okay. Doesn't seem fair to me. Does it seem fair to you? It seems like it's a violation of my due process under law. I think I'm entitled to due process because someone comes in here and does a surprise move to smear me, hurt me, and tell people I'm a bad person, and then asks you to come in here and be a part of their little scheme by casting a vote to remove me from office. I think you know that despite my faults, I'm a better person than that. I did my best to come in here and defend against their allegations. Remember, you should make your decision based on what was presented by the two people who have made these charges against me. You can't read things into the charges that weren't presented. So what did we hear tonight? We heard many things that were not relevant to removing me as a member of council. I've heard things that are simply not true. We heard things I have done and said that you may not like. I didn't like hearing them either, but what I will tell you is that we all say things in the heat of the moment as we try to advocate for our positions or try to express our feelings. We've all said things in the past we later regret. Does that justify removing me as an elected member of council? Decisions such as whether someone's opinion agrees with your own or whether their position on a particular topic is correct are to be decided in elections, not a thrown together removal hearing where the charges are sprung on someone at the last moment. It makes me feel that these charges weren't shared with me until the last minute to actually prevent me from being able to defend myself. Could I have dragged a bunch of people up here to the theater to rebut each and every thing said? Sure, I could have, but I don't believe I should have to do that because these so-called charges are not things that support removing me from my elected position. So what are they? I told you in the beginning, differences are not a failure of humanity. Differences are a test of humanity. This really is a test. Did you hear differences of opinion or did you hear laws broken and rules violated? I believe that what you heard during this presentation was differences of positions taken on things and things I have said. What you heard were different opinions about many things. You heard different ways to accomplish things. You heard me questioning things, something some council members don't like me doing. You heard me expressing the opinions and ideas of community members who are afraid to bring them forward. So I do it for them. Does that make me popular? Probably not. I guess I wouldn't be here if it did. But sometimes we need to ask uncomfortable questions. Sometimes we need to wonder if there is a better way or if someone had a motive we need to examine. Before you silence me by removing me, I would ask you to remember what the village charter requires of you. Did any of the things these witnesses said tonight prove that I violated my oath of office? No. Have I engaged in conduct that violates Ohio law and the Constitution such that you think it warrants my removal? No. Have I breached the rules of our council or the ethical laws in Ohio? No. Have I done things I didn't tell people I would do when I ran for office? No. I would suggest to you that what I have done is to say some things that you may not agree with. I would suggest to you that I've taken positions that you may not agree with. Those are differences of opinion. They are differences of style. I'm not even sure I still agree with some things I said a few years ago or even a few months ago. We evolve and we change and we debate. I know it's been a while ago, but as I said in my opening statement, that's what elected officials do. We represent all people in our village. We debate and argue. I admit that it's not pretty sometimes, but sometimes we even try to find common ground with people we don't always see eye to eye with. There's no provision in my oath of office that says I promise to be nice. Ask my daughter and grandkids. I'm not afraid to tell them how I feel. There's no provision in my oath of office that says I will only ask questions when I know others agree with me. There's no provision in my oath of office that says I will sit here and be quiet when I know there is more to the story. I told you in the beginning, my disagreement with something won't stop me from pursuing the things I'm passionate about. I respect our charter. I attended meetings before and during COVID to help write it. But I also know that I have not violated my oath of office. I know I've not committed some act to support removal. You heard the evidence tonight presented against me. You heard the things said. Is it a flower or is it a weed? Or is it really a difference of perspective? I ask you to consider that as you deliberate tonight. Thank you.
Both parties have indicated, I'm just going to read the portion of 3.06 of your charter, which indicates that council and the mayor may expel or remove any member of council for failure to meet or maintain qualification of office, for violation of this person's oath of office, or conviction of a felony or other crime involving moral turpitude, or for persistent failure to abide by the rules of council. And this is by 2/3 vote. Is there any discussion prior to the vote?
I would like to enter into just kind of a statement, blanket statement, if that is okay.
Would you be opposed to?
Well, there's discussion.
Okay.
If you want an opportunity to discuss.
I would like to discuss the charges and just kind of talk through a few things. Can you wait until?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be brief.
Is this discussion on the record?
Yes, please.
Please speak up.
And tell the court reporter your name.
Kelly Cornett.
Thank you.
May I ask one procedural question? I'm sorry to interrupt. But when it says deliberation discussion by the council and mayor, does that include Councilmember Mays, Councilmember Wolf, and Councilmember Montgomery who have already presented, or are they able to interact in this way as well?
Mr. Braun, you're their solicitor. He's asking whether or not the parties who have been directly involved can participate in the discussion.
It was more along the lines of, have they already had their chance to participate and now it's our turn? And I don't care. I really don't. I'm not trying to silence anybody. I just want to make sure what the heck's going on right now.
If it helps you, I agree with you. You've heard what I have to say. If you have a question about something I've had to say, I'll respond to it, but I don't anticipate, you've got to hear my opinion for the last hour, so I don't anticipate jumping.
That either. I agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I just really want to go line by line on the charges, and I will be brief, but just kind of to walk through these real quick, my perspective on these. So the first charge, the sign, changing of where the sign was to be put or positioned, if you will. I think that this is also goes along with item 2 as far as renegotiating the contract for the sign with Rumpke. I think this is a little muddy, the whole sign scenario, and it's to begin with, because the sign was just kind of a blow up situation where we as a council really failed and allowed a committee to really take this sign and develop it and make it where they wanted. And have it be what they wanted it to be. And as a council, we failed because we didn't stay involved as a whole in that process. So the sign itself blew up, and there were a lot of wrongs in that situation. And because of that, we brought it back to the table as a council and actually assigned the task to redevelop the sign and start over essentially with the sign to an ad hoc committee. We did not put parameters in place as a council. We did not direct them exactly what we wanted. We just knew that the sign was not what we wanted. And hey, go fix this. Let's start over. Let's go back to the drawing table. So I don't believe it to be fair to hold one person accountable for that sign or the changing of the sign. I do recall that, and I wish I had the clip, I would play it. It was it was a great moment when in council we all talked about the sign and what went wrong, and positioned it to Nancy as a member of that, the only member of that ad hoc committee. We positioned the question like, how did this happen? How did this get moved? And she apologized. She said this is the way that it was done before, as far as the CDC committee did it. They made the sign, they picked the places, and lo and behold, us as a council quickly realized we didn't like what they did, but we were never involved. So my point there is that I feel it, I believe it to be wrong to hold one person accountable for that sign positioning when it was truly the ad hoc committee that directed as a whole where they wanted this sign to go. We failed. We failed as a council there to again, stay truly involved, which is why we started working on the work sessions to really do work sessions and bring all the committees to the surface and really have an understanding as a whole council what each committee was doing. That's exactly why we developed work sessions, because we failed in a couple committees and the communication wasn't there. So that's item number one. Item number two, renegotiating the contract. Again, that kind of goes back to my same point. They did this before. The CDC committee directed everything on that sign before. And the only reason everyone got up in arms about it is because, again, we failed as a council to not stay involved. It's our fault as a whole, not one person or one committee. It's our fault because we didn't have the right communication in place. So again, I go back to what I just said with item number one. Item number three, I think you cited it as the Hessler incident. I recall that whole situation. Again, that also involved the sign. The sign was an ugly, ugly situation, and it played out for months. It was not fun to be a part of. There was no right answer, no wrong, and it was just ugly. But the Hessler incident and the video that was played on the screen, I thought Nancy was pretty harsh that night. I really did. And I think I recall having a conversation with her after the fact about, like, I didn't like how that went down. But I will also say, if we're calling that a violation of code of ethics, then I recently violated the code of ethics. I myself went in a tyrant in an open session meeting, had a cursing incident. It was probably a 5-minute long situation where I, as president of council, said some things I shouldn't have said. I also, and I wish she was here, but I also was very rude to a member of the public in an open session council meeting.
You apologize.
I apologize, but that doesn't make it, just because we say sorry doesn't fix the plate, right? The plate's still broken. So, there again, I can think of 2 recent times that I violated the code of ethics. Okay. The fourth item, directing Art to set a meeting. I know you removed that from your charges. I'm glad you did, because I'm the one that asked Art to gauge the consensus on the meetings. And do we want to have a special meeting? Because I was going to be missing that Thursday meeting to be at a work event.
And I may have misunderstood it.
Right. So
why are we talking about
so
it?
that's off the table.
Yeah.
Item number 5, sunshine law. The violation. I know that we're saying this isn't everything that we're trying to remove a council member from, but I will just say, if that's one of the items on the table, and I was to vote on this, specifically, did Nancy violate the sunshine law? Well, no, all 3 of you did. All 3 of you that responded in that text violated the sunshine law. That's to me, that's just a black and white fact. And then the no vendetta against the police department. I've heard it on both sides. Everybody at this table at one point or the other has been on the opposite side for the most part of most topics that we have discussed. There have been multiple issues that have come up, and I think somebody said debating it over time makes it seem better or might change your mind. I think that was what it was. And I agree with that. There have been multiple things that at one point in time, if you ask me in the moment, I would want to do. I would want to just run to the worst case scenario. Over time, as you think about it, and I probably have said that. I know I've said that. I know you have said that. I know Nancy has said things. But over time, as you debate things out and you level out and you get cool-minded, you really start to, think things through, which is what we're supposed to do. We're all going to have that immediate reaction. But what we're supposed to do is really, as council members, think these things through over time and make the best decision. So, I don't know that what you presented on the vendetta with the police department truly proves that. I do know Nancy can be difficult to work with, and I know that, she's passionate about the police department and making it what she thinks would be fit for this community. But I also know that to my left here, they're passionate about things too as well. And whether it's the police department, the fire department, whatever it may be, we're all passionate about something. We all have different opinions at times, but that doesn't make us right or wrong, and that doesn't make us partial to that department or not like that department either. So I would offer that, that difference of opinion is important. Diversity is important in everything. And just because we can't agree doesn't mean we dislike something. Again, I don't know that item number 6 really was proven. But for me, as council president, I made multiple attempts with both sides to bring them to the table and to have discussions. This, to me, is the end-all situation. Like, we shouldn't be here. I really wish we could have went to the table and talked it out. And I did talk to Steve and I did talk to Nancy Mike. I did not talk to about coming to the table. Nancy was willing to sit down and discuss this and see if we could find a different solution. Steve was somewhat willing. He wanted to think about it and get back to me after the weekend. He kind of took that, let me think on it on the weekend approach, which I absolutely respect. But then when that Monday came around, he was not willing to sit down. And I was pretty sad by that because, again, I think this is the ultimate solution. This is not the right way of doing it. I think we really could have talked this through and kind of solved the differences that were on the table by all means, if we could just all sit at the table. But with that said, I don't like where we are. It gives a black eye to the community, but also I think I think we owe the citizens of this community an apology. This stuff costs money. Unfortunately, it costs money. This is something that we're going to have to pay for. Hopefully it's not that much money, but it is not a good thing that we're sitting here. And I certainly want to apologize that I'm disappointed. If you can't tell, I'm absolutely disappointed that I'm sitting at this table, having to sit here for 3 hours on my son's birthday. And that's not the only reason, but I mean, I'm here because I want to be here and I'm a part of this community, but it's disappointing that we're at this point. And I think only through this, we've just drug ourselves through the mud again. We have 2 employees, one's a subcontracted employee, but 2 employees that I felt tonight were kind of drug through the mud. They shouldn't even be involved in this, but what they said or what through a phone conversation was used in this table conversation, yeah, maybe it was relevant, maybe it wasn't, but we're dragging people through the mud and it's ridiculous. So my only ask is that whatever happens tonight, I just want to move forward. I want us to grow from this. I want us to learn how to, whoever is sitting in these chairs, we have to be able to work together. We can't have these disagreements and come to this table every 3 months and try and remove somebody. I don't find that healthy, and I don't think it's a good team environment. So
Right, thank you.
with
Any
that,
other discussion? Sir.
Okay, I'll keep this brief. You've been here a long time, and I really appreciate your attention in these matters. So I'm going to start by saying perhaps the strangest thing you might hear tonight in a very unusual situation is I would like to thank Council Member Wolf and Mays and Montgomery for allowing this procedure to proceed with as little acrimony as possible. I'm glad we were able to keep this as calm as we were, and I appreciate the guidance in doing that. There are 3 things that I'm going to be thinking about when I'm making my decision in a couple of minutes. The first thing I'm going to be thinking about is council history. As a council, myself included, we very often go from step 1 to step 2 to step 37. And I think there are people in this room who have suffered from that. And I have been guilty of that, but I want to learn from my mistakes. And I'm very interested in change, but I am also concerned about how we affect that change. The second thing I would like to talk about is the frequency of the specific charges that were mentioned. Bluntly, and I'm outing myself here, I won't do that to anyone else, but in front of God in this village, look, the 6 members of this council have done things incorrectly. Most of the time, they're minor. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not caught, and it happily becomes not impactive of the way we do things. But we screw up, and I screw up. And bluntly, there are things that have happened in our screwing up that is worse than what I've seen here tonight. Steve very accurately, in my opinion, mentioned Section 504 of the Charter, responsibilities of administrators. That's a very valid point. And also, then I should be on the hot seat as well. Art Owens has got to be absolutely sick of hearing from me, quote unquote, telling him how to do his job. Art's fantastic. He doesn't need me. I think I'm helping. I bug Art. Chief Friedland, I guarantee you, is sick of hearing me talk. A lot of times I try to follow the protocol, which it requires me to go through the mayor before I talk to Chief Friedland. I know I have screwed that up a couple times. That's wrong. That's exactly what 504 is talking about, and we saw it up here tonight. But I might suggest that I'm not the worst council member in terms of those violations. All right? I'm not going to talk about anybody but myself, but I'm saying I do that wrong. And I don't know that what we've been presented tonight is really any different from that. The third thing I'm going to be considering is impact. How much of what we heard makes a negative impact on this village? And I need to take a moment to veer slightly. Nancy has openly admitted she has made mistakes. I'm telling you, I've made mistakes. Buried in this whole thing, I think, is someone that needs to be spoken to, that was at the core of the straw that broke the camel's back that I don't think has gotten due. And so right now I'm speaking to the entire village, but I'm specifically speaking to Captain Matt Staggs, who is no longer in this room. I thought he was going to be, I was hoping he would still be here. And through Matt, I'm hoping to get across to the village what I'm feeling about this. In the text issue, Matt was at the core of that. And I need to say to Matt, that if in any way, shape, or form, I had felt that Nancy was twisting my arm, was trying to force the situation, was trying to get me to believe one way or the other, I'm telling both Captain Staggs and the village that would completely be a game changer in terms of my vote. However, I don't believe that. And I don't believe that because I feel it was problematic, but not to that level. And we know it's problem. There's not even a discussion. It was problematic. Was that text thread, unnecessary? Maybe. Was it over the top? Possibly. And I'm just going to go out on a limb and state that this council has a lot of work to do when it comes to the relationships with the police department and with other aspects of this village. As a 6 or a 5 or a 6, we have a lot of work we need to do. But was what happened, or any of the things that have happened, really driving massively negative change in the district, in the village? School employees, sorry. That's going to be a very important thing for me. Basically, and I wish Delbert were here. Delbert, if you're watching, we're thinking about you. Delbert likes to call Nancy Pelosi. And what I'm saying is, if we're talking about undoing the will of the voters, removing someone from this council seat for things, you need to talk about Larry Householder style violations, not ones that have minimal impact on the village. Final thing. You might have noticed that in what I just said, I don't think I disagreed with a single fact that was presented by either side, which, Steve, was kind of interestingly, it puts me in the second of the 3 categories that you mentioned, which I think makes you less happy with me right now, but I'm owning it. I didn't agree with a single fact, I don't believe. What I'm really concerned about is how we do our business. Were there other interventions we could have tried? Were there other things we could have done? We need to explore that. We need to do a better job of that. Tomorrow, we have another meeting, and we have all got to work together, and it cannot be like this. And I'm not blaming a single person except for myself for not doing what I could have done to avoid this, to find a better resolution, to work better together all the way through, whether it's the police department, or whether with each other, or with Mayor Cahall. This isn't over tonight. We're going to take a vote, and things are going to be resolved, but they're not, because we need to be better people, and we're not yet. And I can't imagine, if Steve and Nancy want to punch me on this one, I totally get it. Thank you guys for being so polite this far, but I'm desperate to move on. There's hurt on either side of me right now. And for me to say to move on is pretty shallow because I'm not the one who's hurt. But I'm desperate for us to move on, and I'm desperate for us to do our jobs better. We need to put our focus back on the village and put our energy on interventions that can maybe prevent things like this from happening as opposed to being reactive.
All right,
Those are the things I'm going to be considering when I vote.
thank you. Any other discussion?
In regards to the texting, the sunshine law violation, I feel that it was truly a violation because the content was trying to direct action, trying to get something done, of which I've reminded Nancy Montgomery and many other council members on here. You don't supervise the police department. That falls upon the mayor's role. I've also heard Ms. Montgomery say that many people call her with complaints about the police department. I've asked for those names. She says they don't want to give the names because they feel that I will not do anything about that. I've also had Ms. Montgomery second a vote of no confidence on me in council meetings. After a morning of conversation, I thought it was the best conversation I ever had with her in my entire life about having urgent care coming here. There's been other incidences that, and it's getting away from the topic of hand, but I would still wish to mention it. She was trolling our former administrator and found out that he had applied for a job somewhere else. And really, that's none of anyone's business except for that person, but it became a very hot topic. And it really irritated me and irritated many others. Things get thrown around because there's someone that wishes to take control and wants to affect control. Now, maybe we all have enough ego that we want to can control, but look at the charter, what the roles are, and the code of conduct that every one of you signed, and make your vote accordingly in response to that. That's all.
Thank you.
I'd like to add one other thing.
Quickly, please.
I would just like to say that, based off of the evidence that Steve put it forth earlier, that, there was a reason why we made a charter. There was a reason why we have ethics violations in order. And it'll be real disappointing for all the trouble that people went through to take time to write those things down for us as a guide to follow. And because we deflect so well, and other people have done these same similar things in private that haven't been seen, will allow this to go ahead and just be nothing. That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Right, is the discussion period closed?
I think so.
Discussion period is
I think so,
closed.
yeah.
So I'm gonna ask the mayor to call the roll, take the vote, but I want to say something to you beforehand. This is an official hearing. The court will not tolerate any demonstrations one way or the other. You've been great tonight, very respectful. All the parties have. The court really appreciates that. No matter how the vote goes, turn the page, work together to move Georgetown forward. Okay? So, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's now the time to come for a public vote in regards to the removal of Councilmember Montgomery from our village council. I'll start on my left at Mike Mays. Do you vote for the removal or against the removal?
Or
Mr. Wolf,
Removal.
Ms. Cornett,
Against.
Mr. Varner,
Against.
and I will vote for. So we do not have the required votes at this time. So this motion has failed, and this would conclude this meeting for tonight.
Hearing's adjourned.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate that.
Appreciate that. Did a good job.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. We're still live. Even this situation. That I will accept.
Thanks again. Have a safe trip. Watch out for the deer.
Thank you so much. You're doing a great job. Get along with these guys, right?
I have no problem.
That's a deal.